Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. Very excited today. I have a fascinating guest. Her name is Nicole Dane. Nicole is the founder of Bharatfas Travels and Heart of India Travel. Nicole, did I say Bharatfas close enough to being right?
Absolutely.
All right, very cool. We practiced a
I
little bit.
I wouldn't do it better.
Well, it's not that hard, but I always like to try and get it right when we first come into the conversation. So,
Yeah.
So where are you today? Where are you sitting as we're recording this conversation?
And at this moment, I'm in Udaipur in Rajasthan, India, and I live there since 2 months now. So I have kind of a base. I've lived for 2 years in and around Jaipur. And but I was traveling quite a bit, so I stayed there. I think in those 2 years for about 6 or 7 months, and now it's the same thing with Udaipur. I'm here since 2 months, but I'm going to travel a lot around from the 2nd of October, so I won't be here a lot. But at least I have my home place where I can just unpack my baggage and just chill when it's necessary. So it's nice.
It's nice to have that, isn't it? And we're going to discuss more about kind of your journey from where you were to where you are now. But before we do that, let's give our listeners kind of an opportunity to just get their head around what is Bharatfas Travels and Heart of India Travel. So maybe give us the 30 to 60 second elevator pitch for Bharatfas first, and then we'll speak about Heart of India.
Yes. So Bharatfas Travels is my DMC. And I started this up after setting up Heart of India Travel. And the reason I started this up is to make business easier for foreign companies who wants to offer itineraries through India, and especially in a few states. And I do all the itineraries. I travel them myself, and I know all the hotel owners. I stayed at each hotel. So this is the opportunity for travel agencies to work together directly with a French, English, and Dutch-speaking agency in India, located in India.
I'm happy you clarified. You did a great job explaining that. Maybe we should have started with what is Heart of India Travels first, because it sounds like it led into Bharatfas. But one thing you mentioned, and I want to make sure our listeners maybe that aren't as familiar with the lingo, you mentioned DMC. So, but you kind of explained what that is. A DMC is kind of the person on the ground that deals with maybe the people that are selling the trips overseas, whether that's a travel agent, an outbound tour operator. They tend to want to work with somebody on the ground that's got the personal connections and all that stuff. So did I describe what a DMC is pretty well? Okay.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I think it's Destination Management Company for anybody that really cares what that stands for.
Yeah, I mostly say just B2B, business to business. And so Bharatfas Travels is my business to business company.
Let me ask, because business to business also, there's another big segment, and I'm curious if it's something you are doing as well, as kind of that MICE travel, the meetings, incentives, I'm drawing a blank, so working with businesses to maybe send, to put together a conference, and events, or because I suspect if a company was listening to this and said, hey, we want to do some business meetings in India somewhere, I suspect you'd love to chat with them as well, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. So now let's I'm not sure after that we need to say tell everybody what is Heart of India travel, but let's. I'm sure there's some things that I don't want to leave for people to use their imagination. So, what is Heart of India travel?
So Heart of India Travel is business to consumers agency located in Europe, but operating locally. So located in Europe, I did that because of the insurance and all the things people are used to get from a European agency
Mm-hmm.
with local expertise. So I'm still operating directly, doing business directly with Bharatwas Travels, who is the DMC, my DMC as well. So I have the contacts directly with the local entrepreneurs, but operating from the Netherlands because of all those insurances and because for people often it feels more safe to handle with European travel agencies instead of the local ones in India.
So, what I hear you saying, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody that's listening to this, but what I hear you saying is if you're European and you can book your trip to India through a European company that has a lot of the same safeguards and business practices and procedures in place, but then they still have the benefit of working with a company that actually you're in India. I mean,
Yes,
real,
so
realistically, right?
yes, and I think the main reason is because of I don't know how I say this word in English, but if people book with me and they need to pay an advance of 25% within 2 weeks, and their itinerary or their holiday would be within 6 months, and something happens with my company, they will be ensured that they will get their money back.
Right.
And you don't have this practice in India. So if they book directly with my Indian company, they will have a risk if something happens with my company that they will lose their money. So I don't think something will happen with my company, but it's for some people, it gives some more insurance.
Gives them the peace of mind that,
Exactly.
hey, we're not
Yes,
just booking with somebody fly by night operation that we may never hear from again. So,
exactly.
all right, very very cool. So now that we've kind of set the stage for what you're doing, we're going to discuss more of it when we get back to this point. But I want to go back and figure out how did Nicole end up living and working in India? Because I'm guessing based on our conversations, based on your accent, stuff like that. It didn't all start in India. So, how far back do we need
No.
to go to kind of get a feel for how you ended up there?
So it was in 2019. I decided to have a sabbatical because my kids were grown up and I sold my apartment. So I thought I had a quite a difficult time before that, and I wanted to travel for a half year. And don't ask me how I ended up in India because it was never on my bucket list. And
You didn't,
I
wait a
have
minute, wait a minute. So, you're not one of those women that watched Eat, Pray, Love and thought, I'm going to do a 6 month sabbatical and I'm going to start it in
n-
India or Italy or
no,
something like that? No?
no,
Okay.
absolutely not. No, I had that wish to go to Asia, and I don't know why I chose for India. And so people warned me that India is dangerous and it's dirty and the Delhi belly. So I thought, okay, if I go there, I need to go by a group tour because it will not be safe for me alone. So that's I booked a group tour, and that got canceled.
Hmm.
I think 1 month before the itinerary, and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? So I booked a taxi because my the start of my trip was in Rajasthan. So I booked taxis, all my hotels for 2.5 months, and I was pretty in control. And but I arrived in India, and I just mentioned that it was not that dangerous, and I got in touch with very kind people from the beginning, and the food was just amazing. So after 2 weeks of traveling, I thought, you know what, all those taxis, I'm done with it. I'm just going to travel on my own. And I took local buses, local trains. I start eating street food because the first 2 weeks I thought I only have to eat in the hotels because it's dangerous. And I start enjoying India, and I canceled all my hotels, and I just thought, okay, just live in the moment and see what happens. And in fact, I had the most 2.5 amazing best months of my life there. And I was so impressed about the country, the people, um, the culture. And at the other side, I was also in shock about the difference between rich and poor in India. And after this sabbatical, I thought I want to go back to India because I had that impression that I had 50 years of a very good life. I grown up in south of France, that's why I have that French accent. Maybe you noticed. And I thought, I don't have to take care of my kids anymore, and it's time to do something for the world. I need to do something. So I started to find out how I could do that, but my boss didn't want to give me another sabbatical, which I understand.
Nicole,
So
well,
I, yeah,
while we're on that, I would love to hear a little bit more about kind of what you were doing before. It kind of helps set the stage for, because I heard you say, things were challenging. I'd been responsible for kids and this and that, and I finally had my chance to go do my thing. So let's help kind of our listeners understand what was going on. I mean, what did you like? So let's go back to childhood. When was the earliest time that you remember thinking maybe you wanted to travel? Or did you ever think about that? Or what did you want to do when you were a kid?
yes. So as a kid, I wanted to be a pilot
Mm.
or a doctor. But what happened is that my parents decided to move from one country to another quite often, and we moved from one house and one place to another. And I remember after the last moving from France to the Netherlands, I was 15. I had to go to the Dutch school again, but I never went to Dutch school, so I didn't know how to write Dutch. And at that time, my whole scholarship screwed up because each time we moved from one country to the other, I had to skip classes or
Mm.
go back in classes because of the language barrier. So we ended up back in the Netherlands when I was 21, and I wanted to see the world. So I started as a flight attendant because I screwed up my
It's
studies
it's
because
it's hard to prepare yourself to get accepted into medical school if you're moving every few years and learning new languages
exactly.
and yeah,
Yes.
I get that. Okay.
Yeah, and it was also because when I was 18, my parents divorced. And at that time, I had a very difficult time with my mom. So we didn't have the finance
Mm-hmm.
to go to school and that kind of thing. So I started working. And once we were back in the Netherlands, I thought, okay, I'm going to work as a flight attendant. And so I did what I had to do to get some certificates and that kind of things. And I started working as a flight attendant. And then I met the father of my children, and I got pregnant. So I stopped working as a flight attendant.
That happens. I'm curious though, before we go any further, what did your mother think of you becoming a flight attendant? Were people in your life supportive about that, or did you even care? Because I think sometimes when you say I'm going to go travel the world, sometimes you get pushback. Sometimes people are like, "Please go, you need to get out
Yeah.
of here." What kind of response did you get?
Uh, yeah, the response was good. In fact, I just lived my life, and I was used to do that for years already when I was a young kid. So they never said anything about it in this time of my life. Later on, when I got divorced, the first thing I said is I'm going to be a flight attendant again after 10 years. And at that time, people had some criticism to
Mm.
about what I was doing because being a flight attendant and having children, that was quite some complicated. But I
I
did
guess
it.
that's where there's that kind of mindset that you got to go do those things when you're young because once you've got the family. So as a 21-year-old, it's probably, oh yeah, great, you should go do that. But when
Yeah.
you're in your 30s and you've got kids, all of a sudden expectations on all levels change. Whether you can do it or not, whether you believe that it's good for your kids or not, other people are going to have a tendency to want to chime in because they have their own ideas, right?
Yes. Yeah.
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 How long did you work before you met your the father of your children, your husband, your ex-husband? How
Yeah.
long were you working before you met him?
I just started as a flight attendant,
Oh,
so I just
geez.
did one season. Yes.
So you didn't get a chance to get it out of your system. That's the problem.
Exactly. Exactly.
I
Yeah.
can relate to that. Uh-huh. I've been there, done
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All right, very cool. So anyway, so they were supportive in the beginning. Once you had kids, then all of a sudden you were single again, and you thought, I'm going to go back to being a flight attendant. You got some pushback. What did you ultimately decide?
So I did it and I started studying again because like being flight attendant was one part of who I am. But at the other side, I also need to do something. I always worked in healthcare, mental health care, or
Mm-hmm.
just in elderly healthcare. So I thought, okay, I need to. I didn't finish my studies, and at that time, I was used to read Dutch and to write a little Dutch with a lot of mistakes, but it was starting. So I started my study again and I was working as a flight attendant. So the first year full time, and then I got to work part time and did my study next to the work. And in 2011, the company where I was working for was taken over by KLM. And I didn't like KLM because it was a too big company, and I'm a personal person, and I need to be in contact and connection with
Mm-hmm.
people, and it was too big, so I decided to stop. And so I finished my study, and I didn't know because I study psychology, and I had no idea what I will do. And at that time, I met a new partner, and he had an addiction. So that's how
Oh,
I rolled
that's
in addiction care.
that is that's perfect for somebody that's studying psychology.
Yes.
I think those of us that are interested in psychology tend to find interesting people to share our lives with, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So you got into that. Um,
Yeah.
so so you graduated with a degree in psychology and got into working with addiction care. Is that right? Did I hear
Yes.
that right?
And
Okay.
yeah. And I still work in addiction care for
Okay.
2 days a week because I need the balance of two worlds. And I
Mm-hmm.
need also the depth of speaking with people, understanding their emotions, and trying to help them find solutions for themselves. So, yeah, I'm enjoying both worlds.
Well, and there's a pretty strong synergy between psychology and tourism, both in the sales aspect as far as arranging itineraries that are going to help people. You know, people tend to go on vacation because they need a break from what
Yes.
they're doing. So it seems like there's a lot of synergy there. I'm sure you use that quite a
Yeah.
bit in your travel business as well. Now, right off the bat, were you meeting with clients in person? Were you restricted to a particular physical location in order to do that? Because that was back before we were all doing therapy sessions online, I think.
Exactly. So I think in this way, COVID for me was something what happened now afterwards because during COVID we couldn't see the most of the patients face to face. So only the more severe cases we had to see them on location, and we went to the locations at that time. But because of that, the company started to do more and more online consultations because of the waiting list in the Netherlands to get some mental health care. And so now we build up new part of the company, and I'm working in that now.
Because there were a couple things that kind of came together with that was number one, if physically it's difficult to meet with people in person, but then also there's an increased demand for people that need to meet with somebody.
Yes,
So
yes.
you take the, you know, because I mean, I remember I was there. That was, I think that a lot of people were furloughed and laid off. I don't think a lot of mental health workers were laid off or furloughed. I think they were working a lot of overtime during that
Yeah.
time. So you take those two things bring together, and the system has to adapt. And that's why, you know, that's why it sounds like you ended up doing a lot more of this stuff remotely. So,
Yes.
so when you started, well, I don't, you tell me where the best place to pick up is, but I heard you say you were doing a lot of stuff in person before COVID. COVID happened. It changed the way you met with your clients. And for a lot of people, it changed the way they looked at the world and thought about what they wanted to do with their lives. I'm suspecting it probably happened with you as well. And that's why we're talking today.
No, I think it started before COVID. Thinking it started in India. Everything started in India. And I knew before COVID because my India trip was just before COVID, and I had to
Okay.
leave my sabbatical or break down my sabbatical because of COVID. But that time it already started changing because I saw I changed a lot during this trip in India. When you talk about control, I was an enormous control freak and perfectionist, and
Ooh.
things had to happen how I wanted them to happen. And when you travel in India, you can't. You just have to surrender. So it changed my way of thinking. And I think so at that time it already started, and I had that view of what I would like to do. But COVID as well in the Netherlands, or after COVID, I mentioned that during COVID, people were staying at home. They were staying with their family. The social network became smaller and smaller. And the years after COVID, I still lived for 2 years in the Netherlands. No, 1 year in the Netherlands after COVID. And I was starting to feel lonely because no one came out and things changed in the Netherlands after COVID. And I think this is one of the reasons I feel so good here, because here you never feel lonely. It's sometimes you just have that, okay, please, I need some time for myself now, you know?
I have not been to India, but I've heard that. And actually, something you said was very fascinating because you said you're kind of a control freak. But then I also remember you sharing how, your group trip fell apart and you ended up just going. And then within a couple of weeks, I think you said within a couple of weeks, you were like taking buses and trains by
Yeah.
yourself and doing this whole solo woman traveler in India thing, which sounds like the opposite of what a control freak would do. So how do you think that happened other than just India being fascinating? I mean, were you just in a point where your life where you just wanted to let go of that control and just
Yes.
go
Yes.
with the flow for a
Yeah.
little while? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
And in
Cause
fact, this is how I live now here in India, and it's just amazing.
but you've got the 2 days a week that you've got to actually show up for your client calls.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you also, and of course you've got travelers and people interested in, booking trips and stuff like that. So you've got to have some sense of organizational skills, obviously. But I've been traveling full time for about 4 years now, and sometimes I'm trying to explain to my family that you know when I'm in these places, if I need some, I'm going to just say the word stimulation, psychological stimulation, or you could use the word chaos, you could use the word dopamine. There's a lot of different words we could use. But as all I generally have to do is walk out the front door and decide, am I going to go left or right? Because
Exactly.
I'm going to see something that's interesting and new. And it's so close to be able to just go get that when you need it. Where when I'm visiting family back in Arizona, I lived in Arizona for 6 or 7 years. There's not too many surprises when you walk out the door. It's like you might see a coyote, but
Yeah.
other than that, it's pretty consistent. So, and I suspect India is probably that times 10 as far as
Yes.
just the opportunities. Um, so anyway, so control freak, you say, okay, I need to make a change. You go to, and you end up in India as a solo traveler, a couple months right before COVID. COVID comes around, changes a lot of things. You mentioned it changed, the Netherlands, but I think it changed in a lot of places. And then that feeling of just, geez, I'm kind of lonely. I mean, I doubt there's, I doubt there's anybody listening to this that can't relate to that for that period of time. Okay, so how did you go from I'm lonely, they're not going to give me another sabbatical to where you are now?
So I thought, in the worst case, I sell my apartment and I'll have some savings, and I'll travel 2, 3 years in India. I'll do some voluntary work, because in the meantime, I met Marianne from the Key of Education, and she had some projects all over the world. And I thought, you know what? in worst case, I will do that, and we'll see what happens.
So
And so,
this was a thought of like volunteer traveling. It wasn't, you weren't quite at the point of, I'm going to start a travel business. You're
no,
just,
that happened.
I'm going to sell my stuff, go to India, find interesting things, is what I heard you say.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
And I thought it would take 2, 3 years, and I did, resigned my job as well. And but something special happened, because after a few months, when I was in India, I looked on my bank app and I said, "What's happening? Why am I getting salary?" So I asked, and they said, "Yes, you have a contract of 4 hours a week." Okay. So at that time, I started working again, and now I work for 19 hours for the company. But so I have the basics to cover my cost of living in India. But at the first place, I thought I'm just going to do some voluntary work. I'm going to write about India, because I would like to show people how India really is. Because when it comes to publications, how you say, publicity in Europe, India is always on a negative way in the news. And I live here for 2 years. I eat street food. I eat everything. I never had a Delhi belly.
I was gonna ask you that, but I wasn't sure how to pose the question without sounding a little. So I'm happy you brought that up. Maybe our listeners need to hear that. And I'm just curious what you're, because you're so familiar with India, and you're obviously aware that there's some stereotypes and stuff that maybe we've read in blog posts or YouTube videos or whatever. Why do you think that is? That so many writers or so many people, it seems like they focus on that, or is that just what we hear because that's what we're programmed to hear? You know what I'm saying? Kind of
Yes,
that cognitive bias or whatever, that, or the reticular activating system, that like, if when you were young you decided that India was dangerous and dirty, whenever you see an
exactly.
article that says India is dangerous and dirty, you use it to reinforce your beliefs you already have, and
Absolutely.
you ignore all the publications that talk about, oh my gosh, this place is amazing. Is that the deal? Sounds
I
like it, right?
think so, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, in the beginning, I was scared as well. And, I use my common sense. So I don't go out, but I didn't go out in the Netherlands as well after 11, walking in narrow streets on my own. So I never do it here, but I never felt unsafe. It's
Mm-hmm.
safe. And even like a few days ago, I was walking in a narrow street. It was on daytime, it was raining. People just stopped to ask me, "Do you need a lift? Can I help you with something?" And but I think in one side it's because of the negative publicity, and because India maybe was dangerous, or the food was not safe 20, 30 years ago. That plays in the mind of people. But um, I think it's also, now I lost what I wanted to say. Um,
Well,
oh gosh, what was it?
maybe this will help jog your memory on that train of thought. But I'm just also thinking India is a really big country geographically, but also when you just look at the population. So there are bound to be things that happen. There are unsafe places everywhere in the world. But when you put that many people together, I'm not saying that it increases the rates of violent crime as much as
Hmm.
just the number of violent crimes. So
Yes.
if my job is to get people to click on news articles in their social feed, and I've determined that, you know what, tragic stories of kidnapping and rape and murder are what get people to click, and I decide, you know what, I'm interested in India. There's a lot of people in India. You're not going to have to look that hard to find stuff because there's so many people.
Yes,
Um,
yes, and I remember what I wanted to say is, um, one of the things I think that impress people a lot is that Indian people are very curious, and especially when you go to the more remote areas, some locals never have seen foreigners, so people stare at you.
I've heard
But
that.
that's because of curiosity, and it's
Uh-huh.
not like. this summer I was in the south of France. That's where I grown up, and my cousin still lives there. And she told me, if you have any jewelry, don't wear it because you get raped in or grabbed in the supermarket. They take everything off. Here, I just walk all the time on the streets with my jewelry. I'm not afraid for a second. In France, I have to leave them at home.
Hmm.
So, and I think there's a big difference between states because people talk about India, but India is a continent
Hmm.
and one state is not the other state. And for me, until now, the states I have visited, and I have even visited Bihar, what is one of the most poorest states, and Uttarakhand is well known as unsafe. I never had that. But I take care of myself and I'm not wearing short skirts or sleeveless t-shirts. I respect the people how they are and I try to appropriate to them and I have no problems.
Do you think, I'm a little reluctant to go here because I realize we both have people that listen to us and follow us that are from different walks of life. And do you think that culturally Europeans, as opposed maybe to North Americans, view the world slightly different when it comes to travel to places like India? And I'll set the stage with, Europeans, big continent, but a lot of more smaller countries, they can get on a train and be in another country in a couple hours, if that.
Mhm.
Sometimes with a different language and different cultures and different foods and stuff like that. Whereas Americans don't really, we generally don't have that. We, if we go to Canada, it's the Canadians would say it's much, much different. I know, but it's maybe not as big a difference as between France and Spain.
Yeah.
So have you noticed that either in the media, that in the way that the media speaks about India, or just in travelers, people you've come across? I'm just curious if you've noticed any significant differences.
No, I think when they speak, they don't speak about states in India. It's all India. So
That's
I
true.
remember uh, a, a few months ago or a half year ago, there was that rape in Kolkata, and I got a message from a friend of my parents from the Netherlands, and he said, "You see, India is not safe. Please be careful." I said, "If a rape happens in Spain while I'm living in the Netherlands, would you say to me, Nicole, you're not safe in the Netherlands?" This is where you're talking about when you talk about India. And I think that's people don't realize that. And people are still thinking about India of an India of 30 years ago, even with the cleanliness. Um, I totally agree that there are villages and cities where it is not clean. And absolutely, it's not as clean as in Europe. But what happens here is that when you go into the houses of the people or in front of their houses, it's perfectly clean. But the big problem is that to take the garbage in the remote villages, it's very difficult. It's a logical, logistic, how you said
Yeah,
it
yeah.
in
A
English?
logistical problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not, and some people are not aware because there are also people who didn't learn that kind of things. But a few weeks I was in a very remote area of Rajasthan, and the owner of that farm stay brought me to a school, and I was impressed about how clean it was because we bought some bins for them to encourage them to be clean, to throw everything in the bins. And I arrived at the school and I said to the owner of the hotel, I said, "Why did we bring this? Look how clean it is."
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah.
just amazing to see. So there are a lot of projects going on, and people are really focused also on being sustainable, not using plastic bags. But India is so big. So what happens here in Udaipur doesn't mean that it will happen in Jodhpur because everyone has different ways of handling things.
Well, what you're saying there, it makes total sense. And I'm trying to imagine if I'm living in a village and my priority is doing enough work that I'm able to feed my family. And then I'm faced with the question of, okay, what are you going to do with your garbage? And I don't have a car. I don't have a pickup truck. Nobody's going to come by and pick it up. So how much time and effort am I going to put into packing up all the garbage and walking a mile or two or somewhere to dispose of it,
Yes.
or paying somebody to take it away? It's like, man, that just doesn't fit into my priorities right now.
Yeah.
So that just develops a system where it's like, I just got to get it maybe out of the yard, just over the fence into the street, because I don't
Yes.
necessarily want it in my yard, but I'm not going to invest I'm not going to take money out of my kid's mouth in order to take half a day to get the garbage somewhere else where it belongs. Right. That's
Yes.
kind of, it sounds like what's happening.
Yes. This is one thing what happens. And at the other side, there's also, because I see so many times people just throwing plastic on the ground. And that's a thing. And I had a lot of discussions about that. And the there are so many people and so many people thinking differently. I still don't agree and don't like it. And I really, when I'm traveling or when I'm on the street, I really show how, even I smoke. And when I have smoked a cigarette, I never throw it on the floor. So I try, to make the small difference on that way. But at the other side, until 30 years ago, they didn't use plastic because everything was made by
Hmm.
leaves, natural products, and that you could just throw it on the floor because it will.
Ah,
So,
yep.
there are so many, and I don't say it's a good thing that they throw plastic on the floor because I really don't like that. But, I think we need to go more in the depth to understand the reason why it started and how difficult it is to change behavior of people. And it takes time, but I see that it's changing.
Because kids growing up, they see their grandparents throwing banana leaves on the ground after they finish
Yes.
eating something, and they just, okay, that's how you do it. And then
Yes.
the kid ends up with a bag of chips, a plastic bag full of chips or something, and they're not thinking about that. They've got other things that they're worried about trying to get through the day.
Yeah.
And again, not justifying it, but if you understand the culture behind it, then maybe you can do something about it. And it's just it can feel overwhelming when you're in a crowded place trying to make a change. Maybe you're the one person in the neighborhood that's like really determined to keep the area around their house clean, but then all your
Yeah.
neighbors are throwing their garbage in your yard, and eventually
Yeah.
you're just like, oh man, this is pointless, and it just kind of continues that way. But I
Yeah.
don't want to get too focused on the trash in India.
No.
It's an issue, but it is something probably that your clients or people visiting India for the first time, it can be a little bit of a culture shock. So what do you think you get? What do you think you get to do with your clients before they come that will help them not be so shocked by it, but at the same time, not saying, "Hey, just so you know, this place is really dirty. There's a lot of garbage." Because you don't want to emphasize that, but at the same time, if they kind of know what to expect, what do you think?
Yeah. So I think people um, already expect it to be dirty, to be unsafe to eat everywhere,
Okay.
to feel unsafe because of the media. And once they are here, that's what my cousin told me last year. She said, "Oh my gosh, I would never, if you didn't, wouldn't have lived in India, I would have never gone here. But it's just amazing." And it's not how it is shown on the news. So I think I even don't need to put too much of attention once they decide to book the
Okay.
trip. I think the point to talk to people is before they decide to book, because people don't book because they think the food is not safe, because they think it's unsafe to travel around, and especially as a woman. So that's why we organize now women groups,
Mm-hmm.
so they can go for the first travel to India in a group setting with a guide with them. And then they will see that it's nothing to worry about.
That's so I can relate to that. Many of the places I've traveled, my family wasn't that excited. When I first started traveling full time, my first destination was Colombia. And it's kind of the similar things, especially in the U.S. The news reports that we remember seeing, or that especially our parents remember seeing, or maybe even I, as I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of good stuff. There wasn't a, oh my gosh, Colombia's amazing, you should go there. It was, we weren't getting that message. And even, 30 years later, when I pick up and say, hey, I sold all my stuff and went to Colombia, kind of the same way you did to India. And my family's like, oh, what are you doing that for? Are you sure that's where you want to go?
Yeah.
You know, and I got there and I was like, I remember sitting out in front of tiendas or coffee shops, drinking my little paper cup with my coffee in it and eating my croissant, thinking, wow, there are so many people that are never going to experience what I'm experiencing right now out
Yeah.
of fear or misunderstanding or old stories that, have long since passed, but they still have it in their head. And I suspect you're the same way in India. It's like, oh
Yes.
my gosh, if
Yeah.
people only knew, they would really, really, really dig this. So then that's your challenge, is to convey that
Yes.
to your potential clients so you can share it with them.
Yes. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think this is one of the reason I started Heart of India Travel, is because I wanted to share my experience about India with others, and at the same time doing something for local economies, because India is not as touristic when you compare to Indonesia or Thailand. They have a lot of tourists coming there. And what I saw during my trips is that more and more villagers are moving to the big cities. And it's a big misunderstanding that India is very poor. In the big cities, people live often in poverty because life is expensive there. They don't have their houses. But in the villages, they have their house because people live in joint families. They have some piece of land, so they have food. They have everything they need. But there is no income because the people are going out from the villages. And I thought, if I start Heart of India Travel, I bring my people to the places who are not that well known, and where the crafts come from, or the heritage, the musicians, that kind of things. It will increase the economy on those in those villages.
I told you before I hit the record button, I said I'm not going to ask you
Yeah,
any questions don't know the answer to. So I don't know if you know the answer to this, but let's just guess. I'm guessing, and you know more than I do, that the vast majority of tourists that go to India probably are going to what, the Taj Mahal, probably a few other places. I'm thinking like
yeah.
90% of the tourists going to India, especially Europeans and maybe from the States, are probably going to 1% of the destination. Does that sound about right?
Yes, and if you want to, those villages are the heart of India.
Yeah.
That's the real India, the real people. When I remember when I told my oldest daughter that I will live in India, she said, Daddy is going to Delhi so many times, and he said it's dirty and it's not safe, and
Ah,
he does. And I said, people think that Delhi is India. No, if you want to discover the real India, go to the villages, and there it's a world, a totally different world. People are so
yep.
welcoming. You know, I had in houses so small, people had nothing, and they give me their last chai. This
Yeah.
is how Indians are, and
Wait,
this is for me.
they give you their last child? What did
No,
you
no,
say?
chai, chai, chai,
Oh, okay.
the tea. No, no, no,
I thought I better ask for clarification just in
no,
case
no,
someone
no.
else also heard child. You know what though, as we're discussing this, the little light bulb went off, because remember when I asked you, why is it that the publications and the media and people are always writing and talking about, dirty, dangerous, Delhi belly? And then as you were speaking, I was like, oh, duh, because that's where most of them are going, is, to
Exactly.
Delhi, where you have Delhi
Yes.
belly and you've got the those things. So you've got, if my stats are anything close, 90% of the people are going there aren't really seeing the stuff you and I are talking about. They're going
Yeah,
back and sharing it, right?
I had in all those years I'm traveling to India and living in India, I had one Delhi belly, and it was in Delhi in a four-star hotel.
It was in Delhi in a four-star hotel.
Exactly.
Do you? I don't know if you remember this. I don't know why this came up, but Anthony Bourdain. I remember reading something that he'd written, probably in social media. I don't even know if he wrote it, but it was like, "Don't eat the food at the hotel buffet when you
No,
when
but
you go
that's
to these
true.
places because the hotel doesn't care. You're there for one night. You're there for a you're there for one night. You're
Yes,
leaving the next morning. It's not their problem. Where
exactly.
the street vendor is relying on the regular local people that buy from them. And if you
Yes.
see a street vendor with a lot of people lined up, that's where you should be eating. And if you're eating in the
Yeah, and
hotel and you get deli belly, then that's probably on you.
so, but that's what we do when I only work together with small hotels run by the owners themselves. Most of the time, it's only homemade food, so it's most fresh. It's mostly organic, and for myself, I eat everywhere now. But when I eat street food, I only go to places where it's busy. When it's
Mhm.
not busy, don't go because you know there's something wrong. And the places who are busy, I never had anything. But the big
Mhm.
hotels, I even don't work with them because exactly what you said, they have those buffet. The taste is not good. You won't get the real Indian taste of food. And in those homestays, you get the most amazing food.
Which is so counterintuitive because I'm sure that many of the people that, let's say, they visit Delhi, or this isn't limited just to India, but they visit a place and they're so afraid of getting Delhi belly or Bali belly or whatever it is wherever they're going, that they are afraid to eat the street food, or they're afraid to
They
go
miss the
into some of the
best food.
restaurants, so they end up eating the hotel food because they think it's going to be safe and
Yeah.
it's easy. They, because the label, that's a thing too, right? Is sometimes it's hard to eat street food because you don't know what it is, and if you're a picky eater, you want to know what it is.
Yeah.
But the hotel buffet at least will probably have little signs on each thing saying,
So this is a
spicy
funny
green
thing.
curry or whatever, right?
Yes. So this is a funny thing. I was 2 years back. I was for a few weeks in Mumbai, and I visited the slum there, and I met the owner of the guy who was organizing those tours in the slums, and he invited me at his home, and he told me about how everything works in the slum, and he told me we are making cookies in the slum, and those are the most famous cookies in Mumbai, but they have to sell them to a bakery. The bakery gets the name, the brand name, put the
Wraps them
brand
up in
name
a
on,
wrapper.
because people in Mumbai don't want that people get to know that they are buying from the slums.
Hmm.
But this is a huge business, and when you see what happens in the slums and the richness in the slums, people are amazingly rich. There are some millionaires there, and they
Okay.
still live in small apartments because they don't care. And I think that's also one of the things. I remember one time I was in Gujarat in the tribal area, and I took some pictures of a house. And one friend made a note because I'm putting some blogs on polar steps, and she said, "Oh my gosh, terrible to see this poverty, and this chief is just living in the living room." And I answered, I said, this family has amazing amounts of money. They have an enormous car in the garden, but they don't care. They are
Yeah.
used to live in a small house without furniture, and they are happy the way they are living. And for me, this is one of the parts that makes India so beautiful, especially in the countryside, because big cities is different, but the countryside and the real India, this is how it works. They don't care about materialism.
Yeah. Isn't That's where the culture shock is, right there, is just
Exactly.
wrapped up probably in the word materialism.
Yes.
because
And
because you and I both know that the person in the US or in Europe that can afford to visit, to fly to India, and they're probably going to stay at the four-star hotel and all this. In our culture, the person that has money to go do that stuff tends to care about their house and the size of their house and the
mhm.
neighborhood that they live in and their yard. So that's going to be a big contrast. Where there's probably people living in some of these villages and pretty meek. I don't even. I'm ignore that word, but they're living in a place that we would look at and say, "Wow, they must be really poor." And then they're probably going down to the airport, getting on a plane and flying
No, but that's
and visiting
exactly.
Europe.
Yes, yes. I went to see some artists, and they are well known over the whole world. Their work
Mm-hmm.
is shown everywhere. And I went to their houses, and it's just so basic. And you will think, oh my gosh, this guy needs some money, and I need to give him something. And I think the biggest problem of us foreigners is we don't ask any questions. We see something, we make our own conclusions instead of asking for, okay, it looks very poor. Are they poor? And then you get the chance to explain people. But no, people make their own conclusions, and that's how it comes into the world.
You're absolutely right, and here we are, two Westerners. You at least live in India, and I've been traveling a lot. But we're still kind of, we run our things through the head that was created when we were 2 and 3 and 4 years old. But where I'm going with this is, like you said, we show up and we look and say, oh, your situation looks really difficult. You
Yes.
look like you need a new house. But if you ask them, hey, tell me about your life, tell me about your dreams, what's important to you, they may never occur to say, man, you know what, I need a new house. They
Yeah.
might say I need a new car because it's going to be useful for them. Or they might say, I want to go to the US someday, or I want to attend my child's wedding someday, or I want to have grandchildren. What we think is their most pressing need isn't always what they think is their most pressing need.
Exactly.
And yeah, so it's really about asking questions instead of just making assumptions. But it's also hard to ask questions. If you feel like someone's living a much different life, sometimes it's hard to to ask questions because we're afraid we don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How do
You
you
know,
ask questions to somebody without offending them? Hmm.
so I think the thing here in India, it's very easy because Indians are so curious. They ask you
They will ask
within
you,
five.
right? They,
Yes, yes. So if they ask me, why shouldn't I ask them? And that's how it works here.
that's a good point.
But that's how connections start very easily.
Hmm. You bring up a good point because I've even just some of the memes, and I've again I haven't been to India, but I've met some Indians. I the ones I've met have been amazing. But you're right; they tend to be pretty comfortable getting physically close, and they tend to
Yes,
be comfortable just, hey, why do you look that way? Why are you, you know,
yes. Are you
just
married?
asking
Do you
weird
have
weird.
children within 5 minutes?
Actually, yes. Actually, I was just having a conversation with somebody earlier today that's in Kenya. We were having conversations about the cultural differences, and she said the first time that she got to guide a group of people, she got on a small bus with some people, and they started asking her questions like, you know, are you single? Do you have a boyfriend? And that's like culturally,
Yes,
well, we just don't discuss that stuff. But
yes,
In
yeah,
India, they do. I think it's especially
yes,
like
absolutely.
because parents, the whole family gets very involved in their children's romantic relationships and stuff like
There
that. I
is
don't
no
need,
privacy in India.
so I could see, an older woman asking a younger man on the street, "Are you married? Do you have a wife? Do you have a girlfriend? You should meet my daughter."
Yes,
Fascinating. What's
yeah.
I don't want to ask you any corny cliche questions. I think you've pretty much answered the question of, what's your favorite part of living in India. I think we've definitely covered that. Um, I think we've covered some of the surprises, like what would people be surprised to know? But maybe I want to dig a little deeper. Like, what do you? Somebody that's thinking about. I think we've already covered this, but maybe something else will come up. Someone that's thinking, I've kind of always wanted to go to India, but I've been reluctant, or I feel like, oh, there's other places I keep going to instead of India. what's the message you really want to get to them?
It's, I can answer this question, but I'm passionate about India and I want to discover all India. So I think I won't be, I have my, my own
You're
thoughts about, but I
biased. You're
think,
biased. I get that. That's okay.
I think, of the, what um, how I saw India and my experience of India, especially after the first 2.5 months, is that India is real. People are real and really interested. It's not the to buy or shop, sell you something, I remember when after India, after 2.5 months of India, I went to Myanmar, and Myanmar is Buddhism. So my first thought was about the people there are very kind, and I had a culture shock because there it felt so superficial, and just because they wanted to sell something to me. And I had a total culture shock when I
Hmm.
went to another country. And I'm not saying that everyone here is real, because it's not possible, but the people I have met, it was like that. And especially in the places where less known, so the hidden gems were amazing because it's so beautiful. Um, People still are like 50 years ago, and I enjoy that. I enjoy the way of living, how people lived 50 years ago without the social media, without all those. Yes.
Well, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it did just make me think that that's an interesting thing because as someone that travels a lot, and I think a lot of people listen to this podcast do as well, is sometimes you go places and you just immediately determine, okay, if anybody talks to me, it's because they want to sell me something.
Yes.
I've found myself several places where I've thought, oh, if anybody approaches me and starts a conversation with me, they're trying to sell me something, and it's not magazines. Um, and that's a tough bag to carry around in your head. When I say a tough bag, a tough story that I've got in my head is that if people try and talk to me, they want to sell me something because I know I've missed out on opportunities to have really interesting conversations. Because a few times when I do let my guard down, I'm surprised.
You
Some
get the
young
most amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, a young man sits
Yes.
down next to me on a park bench, and initially I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he's going to tell me some story and da 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 da, and why he needs money." And then
Yeah.
10 minutes later, we're just sitting there. He's practicing his English, I'm practicing my Spanish, and he's telling me about his family and his brother and what he wants to do
Yeah.
in school, and he wants to learn about the U.S. And I'm like, "Oh, geez, I almost just missed that opportunity." And I'm embarrassed to
Yeah.
admit it, but I'll share it here because I haven't shared it anywhere. I
But
went.
I share exactly your meaning. Oh, sorry, you were
You've
saying
seen that,
something.
right? Well, I was just one quick thing that really embarrassed me was I was in Bucaramanga, Colombia, and I went downstairs to get some coffee and a croissant in the morning, and I was standing. Just this guy was selling it just on the street. There were no tables. It wasn't a cafe. I was just standing there waiting for him to get my coffee, and this guy approached me. I thought he approached me because that's how arrogant and egotistical I can be sometimes. Oh, he must be approaching me. But he walked up and I looked at him and he looked, his hair was messed up. He wasn't dressed very nicely. And I think he was trying to just acknowledge me, say good morning or something. And I looked at him and I said, no, que pena, no tengo. Like basically meaning, no, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you. And he looked at me with the weirdest look. And then he looked at the guy working there and ordered his coffee and his croissant. And he was just getting coffee just like I was. And it's like 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
So of course his hair's messed up. He just got out of bed. I look the exact same way. But nobody assumed I was asking for money. So anyway,
Yeah.
I only share that to emphasize, anybody listening, let your guard down. Don't assume everybody wants money from you. But it sounds
Yes.
like you can relate to that.
Absolutely. And still, I think it's happening less and less, but I still have those moments, that I think, oh my gosh, I'm thinking like that again, and stop it. Because um, I think that the biggest problem are my thoughts, and
Yeah.
now not the situation. It's what I make from the situation. And when I just let that go, the most amazing discussions appear, and you get to know so many new things just by letting go your thoughts and your prejudice.
I'm sure you have you had conversations with people that in the end, yeah, they're probably asking for some sort of support, but the conversation is so fascinating that you're like, well, that was the best $1.50 I ever spent, or $2. They don't necessarily ask you for much, but they'll spend 10 minutes having a conversation with you, a fascinating conversation, and then they say, hey, I'm broke, can you help me with anything? And you give them whatever it is, and you're like,
Yeah.
that was actually money really well spent. That was
Yes.
like a really good conversation. And
Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, enough on that. What are you're going on a trip, so tell us real quick about the trip you're getting ready to take.
So I'm going on a trip to Madhya Pradesh. So I will start with Agra and Chambal. It's 100 kilometers from Agra. And those two are because of our NGO work, because next to the travel agency, each place I cover, I speak with the owners of the hotel, because most of them are doing something in sustainability and they support local economies. So I go there to see if we can do something in with our program for education. And then I'm going to the MP fair, the Madhya Pradesh fair, because I'm going to extend the states I'm working together with. So now we offer Gujarat and Rajasthan, and I covered quite some places in those two states. And now I want to extend with Madhya Pradesh, because it's not well known, and there are a lot of tribals areas there, and also very nice safari parks. And Karnataka and Kerala. And Karnataka is because it's not well known, and I love that state. And Kerala is more because there are more and more people in Europe, maybe in the US as well, but who are willing to do something with mindfulness, Ayurveda, because people, and especially after COVID, people got depressed, burnouts. And so that's the
Are you
reason. Mhm.
are you leading? Have you considered leading the wellness trips? Your trip is going to be led by I don't know if you're a psychiatrist, psychologist, counselor, therapist. I'm not sure, but like it seems like you could lead some trips and
So
kind of
yes, yeah.
help
So
them
for
work through some
now,
of their issues.
yeah, for now, the group trips, I go with the group. And yes, with the wellness, and I think it's not even as a psychologist. I think it's at the moment you travel together, you get to learn each other. And when the connection starts, psychology, in fact, is not more than, in the first place, is listening, really listening to people. And most of the time that solves for 70% their problem. And then the next thing in my job is to ask some questions that make people think, so they find their
Mhm.
own solutions. That's,
Yep.
it's not more than that.
And I suspect if you've got a new client that has decided that they want to speak with somebody, and they are introduced to you, and they come into the mindset of, okay, I'm going to speak with a psychologist, which is great. Um, and I suspect some people have some real resistance to opening up at the beginning, or maybe even booking the call. And then I suspect sometimes when you're with clients in the field, traveling with them, they probably open up much quicker and probably go
Abs-
much deeper, much faster because
you
they're on vacation. They're feeling a connection. They don't feel like they're going to get analyzed. They're just being people, right? Do you
I
experience
did
that?
this, yes, but I experienced it in my work in the Netherlands as well, very often with my clients, when it were people who had some problems by opening up, and especially with the people with bigger traumas. I just went out. I didn't sit in the clinical
Yeah.
settings. No,
Yeah.
I just went
Yep.
out for a walk, and that's how connection starts.
It's I was a fly fishing guide in Montana for several years. And the fly fishing guide thing in Montana is typically me as the guide and one or two guests. It's fairly, very, very small type of, one-on-one or 2-to-1. And I can't tell you how many times I get booked with one guy. He comes from Ohio or Minnesota, whatever, comes out to Montana, wants to go fishing, books me. And it's just he and I. And I'm just rowing the boat down the river and we're chatting and talking. I can't tell you how many super, super deep conversations came out that I'm pretty sure this guy, maybe he's had it with other guides on tourism experiences, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure what we're talking about, he would never talk to his buddies about back home. He's never going to talk to his dad about it. He's never going to talk to his brother about it. He's never going to, probably won't go sign up to speak with a professional, but he'll pay me $450 for the day to go fishing and share all this stuff that he hasn't shared for years. And I always thought, man, this would be like a really good gig for a psychologist to be a fishing guide at the same time, probably really, really help people out. So they were just stuck with me. I could just listen. But like you said, that's important, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we've discussed a ton of things. I know we could just keep going and going and going. And I want to be respectful to your time and the listeners. I know you're packing, get ready for your trip. But tell me, Nicole, what did I forget to ask you? What do you wish I'd asked you? Or what do you want to make sure our listeners know about either you, Barat? Now I'm going to say it wrong. Baratas? Baratas.
No, it's
right?
good.
Okay.
Your accent is even better than mine.
And Heart of India Travel, India, or just life in general. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
Yes, I would love people, and not especially with my travel agency, but just come over and experience the real India. Give it a chance, because India is a country that really it deserves to be discovered. And not the Taj. Yes, the Taj is a beautiful part, but it's not about the Taj that I'm speaking, because the Indians and the whole inside of India is even more beautiful than the Taj itself.
I love that you said, whether you come with me or with someone else or on your own, just do it. That shows a real honest, sincere love for the country and wanting to share it. And I'm going to say, if you do want to go to India, click on Nicole's link, and we're going to have her link to both websites. Probably have Heart of Travel India will be the primary link that you see. And if you are working in the business and want to speak with someone that is kind of boots on the ground that can help you with your clients, you'll find that link on the bottom of the page as well. So reach out to her, have a conversation. I'm going to end with this question. How long did it take before you were able to rattle off all those names of places and pronounce them right? Because
it took quite some time.
I was listening to you. I'm like, I hope that the language has a consistent pattern that you could, once you learn the pattern, you could look at these other names and get them right, because I don't remember the single name of anything you said other than Delhi and the Taj Mahal. So even more reason for someone to reach out to you for your expertise, so they don't get misunderstood when they go to book a room and end up in the wrong city. So Nicole, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure, and I look forward to hopefully meeting you in India someday and working on some projects together. Thanks, Nicole.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.